Welcome to part two of the Starsports Breeders Cup briefing, where we will be looking at the feature races on Saturday from Del Mar for the Breeders' Cup. Hopefully you've watched part one, and hopefully the guys are giving you some winners, some big prices on there as well from the Friday. And that's why you've returned to look at the selections for Saturday. As I said on part one, but just in case you haven't seen it, we've got you covered from both sides of the pond here. We've got Bill Esdaile from the UK, who's the City AM racing editor, and then the American racing experts from over the other side of the pond, Kaitlin Free and Scott Finley. Just before we get diving into the races, and there are quite a few to get through, 9 to be exact, I'm just going to talk to you about some specials that we've got on the website. The traders have been hard at work here, just trying to price up some different markets. So we've got Aidan O'Brien versus Godolphin, of which Aidan O'Brien is 11 to 10, Godolphin 11 to 8, and the draw there is 7 to 2. We've got Top Jockey priced up, where Ryan Moore is 5 to 2, Irad Ortiz Jr. is 5 to 2, and Flavian Pratt is in there at 130 and 5 to 1 bar. Then you've got USA and Canada versus the rest of the world, and who will have the most winners. So plenty of different specials markets if you want to have a fun bet towards the start of the meeting that involves the 14 Breeders' Cup races. And you can essentially have a bet running for all races rather than having a bet in every race. So there's some specials to get stuck into. We've also got an offer running on a lot of the Breeders' Cup races, which is the split second offer. So 50% of your stake back is a free bet if your horse finishes second. That's for the 7 o'clock, the 9:01, the 10:25, the 11:05, the 11:45, and the feature race, the 12:25 on Saturday, and a few races on the Friday as well if you miss part one. So looking at the races here, let's get straight in and started with the 7 o'clock. Kaitlin, I'm going to come to you first here. Ways and Means is the 9 to 4 favourite. Society 3 to 1. Bahava is 11 to 2. Silla is 15 to 2 and 8 to 1 bar. What's your thoughts in the first Breeders' Cup race on the Saturday card?
I think this is Ways and Means' race to lose in here. She's a horse that doesn't necessarily need the lead, but she can be forward. I think Society is probably going to be your front marker here in this race. And Ways and Means looks to be just off of her out of the Kentucky Oaks when she just didn't really quite get things her way. She had a little bit of a too fast. I don't think she really handled the slop. And I think the distance was a little bit too her. So coming out of 3 wins, all of those kind of bit more sprint distances aside from the mile race that was a couple of starts back, I'm going to go with Ways and Means in here. I just think she's probably the best horse in the race. And if she can come and grab Society, I think that's going to potentially be the winning trip sitting just off her. But as far as an each way bet goes, I like Scylla coming out of a second place effort last time out in the Ballerina. The Ballerina is usually a pretty key race coming in here. So if you like Society, maybe don't think she can hang on the front end, I think Scylla is probably the one that you're going to want to get. And she's really improved with the addition of blinkers this year.
So Scylla in there at 15 to 2 for the each way players, and then 9 to 4 Ways and Means. Scott, what do you think here for the opening Breeders' Cup race on the Saturday?
Yeah, I'm on Society. I mean, Steve Asmussen has a strong hand. She's proven herself. She's won at the distance 7 furlongs, which is somewhat of an unusual distance in the U.S. She's had 4 wins in 2 places from 7 starts. So I'd have to go for Society, but it is a difficult race. And looking at the prices, Society's my top pick, but I could be convinced to go elsewhere given the prices.
So Society in there as second favourite at 3 to 1. Moving on to the second race that we're going to look at, which is the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Cogburn is the favourite here at 6 to 4. Bradsell 7 to 2, obviously well known over this side of the pond. Believing 8 to 1. Motorious 17 to 2. Big Evs 10 to 1. Then you're 11 to 1 bar. Bill, let's come to you first because I know that the Americans have got the jolly here, but there's obviously a decent contingent coming over from our side, and Bradsell and Believing have run brilliant this year, haven't they?
Yeah, they have, and the interesting thing about this race is you got the speedy home runner of Coburn drawn out wide, with Bradsell drawn out wide and Big Evs drawn out wide. So there's going to be carnage coming to that first bend with all the speed horses cutting across. So there will be traffic problems here. Coburn's look really quick. It's going to be very hard to beat. this race, it reminds me a bit of when Golden Powell won this in 2021, just scooted away from them at Del Mar, and Coburn has the potential just to get out, get the lead, and not be headed. But at the prices, I give Big Evs a shout of running really well. I've seen some big prices, kind of 12, 14 to 1 mentioned about him. He won the sprint a couple of years ago, but is the York form can be ignored, and he's better judged on his win at Goodwood, which was all about speed on fast ground. And he took a lead off the very fast check horse that day, and might have to take a lead again here. Pontus was really fast that day, so I wouldn't give up totally on Big Evs. I expect Coburn to win, but Big Evs might be the each way play.
Big Evs in there at 10 to 1. I would imagine that close to the time we'll be offering an extra place in this race as well. We're 3 or 5th at the moment, but I expect that to go to 4 or 5th. Kaitlin, what's your thoughts in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint?
I absolutely agree with what Bill says. Cogburn's probably the most likely winner in this race, but you absolutely can't play him at that price. So you need to try to look elsewhere. I'm going to look to Star Mystery for Charlie Appleby here. Phillies have actually a really good record in this race. And last time out, she got out of the gates really slow. She had a ton of traffic trouble and still almost was able to find her way through at Keeneland and the Franklin, which was to be her prep for this race. The last couple of races that she ran are more than good enough to win when Ogburn broke the world record. Back in June at Saratoga, she was 3rd in there, and then she ran the field off their feet in the grade 3 quick call. She is cutting back to the 5 furlongs, which I think 5.5 is probably her best, but I think there's going to be so much speed in here that if somebody's going to be able to come and grab Cogburn, I think she's one that's going to be making up a ton of ground late and kind of be flying into the straight. If I wanted to add another one at an even bigger price, it's going to be Beckett and Russell Ryan.
Okay, so Star of Mystery, the main selection there for Kaitlin, that's at 11 to 1. Scott, coming to you last here, the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. It was a very competitive race.
Yeah, very competitive is the perfect answer. I mean, on form, Cogburn has to be the selection, but it's probably a race that I'm just going to pass. I mean, he's the most likely winner. I don't like his price. There's the trip in this race is going to mean everything. If Cogburn gets out there, doesn't get too much pressure on the front end, which he will get, then I can't see him losing. But at the price is not a good play, and it's one I'm going to probably just watch.
So the perfect race to probably go and have a cup of tea and then wait for the short one in the 8:21. So moving on to the Distaff. I'll come straight back to you, Scott, because you passed on the last race. I'm going to come straight back to you for the Distaff. We've got 4 to 7 favourite in here. In the shape, actually 8 to 15 now, it's just shortened before my eyes. So Torpedo Anna is 8 to 15. Awesome Result 5 to 1. Raging Sea 5 to 1. Then with 14 to 1 bar, it's a lovely each way race for the punts at the moment. So hopefully we get another non-runner in there. But Scott, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, I mean, there's two withdrawals in there, so the field's going to be the smallest of the 2 days. I can't see Torpedo Anna losing. Is 4 to 7 a good price? No, but she's so far and away the best juvenile filly, 3-year-old filly in the U.S. She's amazing. I mean, she took on the boys in the Travers Stakes at Saratoga over 10 furlongs and just got beat by Fierceness, who's running on the Classic, the second favorite for the Classic. So Torpedo Anna, maybe do a double with Torpedo Anna and a couple other shorties on the card. I wouldn't say do a double with Torpedo Anna and Cogburn, but it can't hurt. But anyway, that's my selection there. I just can't see her losing. Probably by far and away the best bet on the card, despite the odds.
Okay, so the jolly's a good thing here. Do look out on the site for any distance specials. Obviously, when we've got a short one, we like to boost some prices to win by a certain distance, so do check those out. Kaitlin, are you following Scott in here with the short price jolly?
No.
No.
I mean, she's the likely winner. Obviously, she's been amazing this year. You can't knock her. She's done everything that Kenny McPeak has asked her to do. But I think there's one problem in this race is the other Japanese entrant that joins Awesome Result, Alicia Verite. She is a speedball. She's never ran on the dirt, but her races on the turf, she's an absolute tearaway type of horse. Torpedo Anna got an easy lead if this horse is not in this race. So I think her being in this race kind of throws a monkey wrench into everything. I'm not sure how much of a difference it's going to make for Torpedo Anna, but with Torpedo Anna at such a short price, with this horse being in the race, potentially upsetting the apple cart, it's enough for me to kind of want to look elsewhere and see what I can do. So Awesome Result also coming in from Japan, as well as Raging Sea, are going to be the two that I'm going to be looking at in here.
Okay, so 2 against the short price one then for Kaitlin, both 5-1 with us here at Star. Moving on to the next race, which is the first race on ITV, so obviously the terrestrial TV side over here for us, which is the Breeders' Cup Turf. Rebel Romance heads the market here at 11-4. Emily Upjohn with Frankie back on board for a John Gosden horse at 7-2. JRB is 5-1. Luxembourg 5-1. Farbridge 10-1. Shayar 10-1. And then we are Wingspan 10-1 and 20 bar. Bill, let's come to you here first. Rebel Romance has been a fantastic servant for Charlie Appleby. And will Rebel Romance go in again?
Won this race 2 years ago and has been globetrotting this season. Won at Doha, Maidan, Chartin, Cologne. Big money spinner for Godolphin. Rebel's Romance. He just looks vulnerable to something with a turn of foot, as he was beaten at Ascot on fast ground. He's going to face fast ground again. It's not the best renewal of this race, if truth be told. When you see horses like Luxembourg and JRB in a kind of 5-6-1, you think to yourself, it's not a vintage renewal. And I still feel Rebel's Romance is vulnerable, particularly from barrier 11. Luxembourg has kind of gone from the front a fair bit recently. He's going to get pace pressure from the likes of Farbridge, so he won't have it easy up front. JRB's got to prove he stays. Look, when he was a much bigger price in the build up to this, he was value. He's young. He's a 3-year-old on the fast improve. Look, I just think Frankie Dettori getting back with John Gosden, he's got a kind of Hollywood fairy tale written about it. And Emily Upjohn seems to be improving her form as of late. The last 2 runs have been really good. Wasn't beaten far at York, and then was touched off behind Blue Stocking and Aventure, who finished 1-2 in the Arc. So that form's rock solid. This is an easier renewal of the race. I think she's the most likely winner. And one at a big price, who I'm convinced is going to run really well, is the 3-year-old Wingspan, a second string for Aidan O'Brien. Wayne Lorden takes the ride on a filly that's lightly raced, is just improving and getting better with each start.
There we go. So Emily Upjohn for Bill there, and Wingspan at a bigger price. Bill, are we surprised to see that Frankie Dettori's back up on Emily Upjohn?
No, look, he's been riding there all winter, and we know the kind of love affair that those two have, the Gosden and Frankie Dettori, and look, he's box office and he knows how to ride at the Breeders' Cup. So Kieran Schumacher will have his day, but look, Emily Upjohn and Frankie have got a good record. I think he's won twice, 2 big races on it before in the past, and was touched off in an Oak. So there's history there, and it just I can totally see why connections are turning back to Frankie.
There we go. And Scott, are you on the Frankie train, or are you looking elsewhere in the Breeders' Cup?
No, I'm looking elsewhere. This is a brutally tough race. I mean, if of the 2 races, I think the Japanese have the best chance, and this is certainly one of them. However, I'm going to go for Horses for Courses, a Del Mar specialist, and that's number 12, Gold Phoenix. The horse ran 4th in the same race last year. He's going to be running on late. There should be a lot of pace to set this up, and I think at the prices, Gold Phoenix is a really good each-way play in here.
Gold Phoenix at 33-1.
6 starts at Del Mar, 4 wins. So on the Del Mar turf course. So
there you go. 33-1. You don't need to convince me anymore, Scott. I was taken when I heard the price. Kaitlin, are you looking at a bigger price one, or are you looking towards the front of the market here?
I think you said this horse was 10-1. This is Shariar for Japan. This horse ran last year in the Breeders' Cup Turf and absolutely was pinned into the rail. Gus Rodin and Ryan Moore had a little bit of trouble for this one. I'm not sure he would have beaten them if he would have been able to find ground, but I think he would have no doubt been second. And I think he's run pretty well ever since then. He ran a really bang-up second to Rebels Romance in the Dubai Shima Classic. He ran well in their Ree McKinnon. Following that, and Deuce has come back to win a couple times off of that. I take the last out race with a little bit of a grain of salt. He wants to go a little bit further than that, and it was just a prep that came in August coming off of the layoff from Maidan. So Shariar, they've said that he's a horse that tighter turn races. So I think Del Mar is going to suit him well. California suited him well last year at Santa Anita. So I think Shahryar can go a couple places better.
There we go. So just to recap that one, we've got Shahryar at 10-1 for Kaitlin, Gold Phoenix at a massive price for Scott at 33s, Del Mar Specialist, then 2 against the field for Bill, Emily Upjohn, and then Wingspan at a slightly bigger price. And now moving on to the big one, the Breeders' Cup Classic, or certainly the big one if we're going to look for potential stallions after the Breeders' Cup's actually finished. So City of Troy 7-4, Fierceness 7-2, Forever Young 5-1, Sierra Leone 10-1, Ushba Tesoro 12-1, and with 14 Bar. Kaitlin, let's come to you first. What's the noise around City of Troy over in Del Mar? I mean, obviously over this side of the pond, it's the huge focus that everybody's talking about. It had a bit of a prep go at Subble over here, I think it was, Bill, wasn't it? And going over to the dirt over there is obviously a huge thing. So what's the noises coming out of the US?
There's still plenty of buzz around this horse that everyone is curious about. We've all interviewed Aidan O'Brien and been very keen of what he had to say. Just kind of looked at this horse in the way he has looked on the dirt in the mornings. He's been a little bit washy, which I think is just kind of typical of that horse. It's not something that's been really surprising to me. And it is warm out in California right now. It's not overly hot, but I don't think that there's really, anything that I can hugely knock against him other than the fact about the price, which we'll get into that a little bit later on. But the buzz around City of Troy has been tremendous. I can't really think this much buzz coming out of a horse to run in this race from an international contingent in quite some time. Churchill ran against American Pharaoh about 10 years back. We've had a few other ones, Roaring Lion, but it looks to be Aidan's probably best chance in this race since the likes of Giants Causeway.
Okay, that's good to know. I mean, there is plenty of buzz about him from this side. What's going to be your selection in the race, Kaitlin? Are you looking City of Troy or are you looking elsewhere?
I'm going to completely fade City of Troy. I'm sorry. I think there's a lot of problems with City of Troy in this race that justify progeny, a lot of their pedigree, and if they're going to handle the dirt, if they're going to handle the turf, a lot of it depends on the dam side. I just can't see a horse out of a Galileo mare being able to take on this level of competition on the dirt. He's looked well over the dirt, I will say that, but he's just such a classy horse no matter what. And based off of his splits in the Juddmonte International last time out, which was by far the best and the fastest race he ever ran, there's no chance that he's going to get the lead in this race. He's got to get way faster in here, and I just don't see it happening. So I'm going to go with the Land of the Rising Sun once again. I'm going to go with Forever Young in this race. He's coming in so well, and I think had him and Sierra Leone not made contact in the Derby, I think this would have been your Derby winner. He had a very good prep last time out. Coming into this race, he seems to have really came out well at quarantine. He definitely looks like he's kind of lost a little bit of weight and gotten a little bit more race fit coming into Del Mar, and I can piggyback off that. And I think the each way price you want is Sierra Leone.
There we go. So a big price one against the field here in the Classic. Scott, coming over to you. Do you think City of Troy is going to break quick enough out of stall free to get involved here, or do you think he's going to get all bustled up very early?
Well, this is this fascinating race, and of note is that Breeders' Cup officials moved the Classic, which was traditionally the penultimate race on the card. They've moved it primarily for TV and international distribution, much closer to, much towards the beginning of the card. You've got Fierceness, which is probably the best of the American horses. You got City of Troy, best of the European, UK, Irish horses. But I'm on the Land of the Rising Sun as well with Kaitlin. I really like Forever Young in here. I think his performance when he came to Churchill Downs was amazing. I thought he'd run well, but not as well as he did. And the Kentucky Derby finish was just, head bobs all the way. I think Forever Young, he's drawn one. He's experienced on the dirt. He ran the Japan Cup dirt not Japan Cup dirt. He's won on the dirt in Japan. He ran extremely well at Churchill Downs. He's my top selection in the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Forever Young then at 5-1. Bill, come on, restore some faith in the Irish and UK horses here because we're getting battered across the pond. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd love to see City of Troy win. The hype probably surrounds the fact that Aidan's said he's the best he's ever had, and everyone knows how many good ones he's had, and he's gone close to winning this race in the past. But I agree with what the rest of the guys have said about the dirt's a guess. It's a guess as to whether he handles it. And there was talk about sand being put on the track, and it's going to ride soft. And I just don't like him. I don't like him from his draw. I think he's going to get back, and I think he's going to get kicked back in his face for the first time. Look, it'd be great to see him win. I don't think there's any value with him. In Fierceness and Forever Young, he faces two really good horses. I thought the bet, and Kaitlin touched on it, was Sierra Leone. I actually put this up earlier in the week. I think he is a horse who he was involved in that melee for the Kentucky Derby, and he's just maturing with time, and I was interested in the fact that he can now breeze on his own. He doesn't have to have another horse. He's just growing up a bit. He was just a bit of a laddo before, and I think he's gonna take a big step forward again. I think he stays really well, and if they go too quick, which they're bound to, it's going to play for something coming from off the pace. And I just thought at the prices, Sierra Leone at 10, 12 to 1 was probably the each way bet against the rest. Of course, I hope City of Troy wins, but I think it's a massive task, and I think he's short.
Okay. I would imagine that City of Troy is probably going to be bigger bigger price over on the American side, isn't he? He's 7-4 with us. I'm not sure what price he is in the pools over there in a minute, but I would expect him to be a slightly bigger price over there. One that I wanted to throw into the mix, I was speaking to the traders this morning, and they were talking to me about a horse called Next. Kaitlin, I know you mentioned Next. It might have been at the start of this podcast. Just give us a bit of background around Next. I think it's obviously stepping up in class here, obviously, and will be staying on late. Am I right in thinking that?
Yes, big step up in class, but he's right for the step up in class. He has won his last, I believe, 4 or 5 races, about a combined 60 lengths. He is a horse that's what we call a dirt marathoner. He would be a traditional classic type of horse on the turf. They actually thought about going to the turf because of the 1.5 mile distance, but he's going to cut back to the 1.25 mile in the classic. And if you look at his numbers and figures and his split times, he is good enough to compete in this race. So I like that he's here. And I agree that Fierceness is probably the best of the U.S. horses at the distance, but Next is by far the classiest, I would say, of this group. So I think he's right. He's certainly worthy of being in this race. I think he's interesting. I think he hits the board. And here I'm not quite sure that he can win, because I think there's a chance he's going to be facing a little bit of different pressure and a little bit of different speed than he's ever getting against. I do think there's a chance he gets ran off his feet in this race, but I do like the way he drew from the complete outside of the jockey. Luan Machado is going to be able to kind of look in, see what the pace is going to be like, because this horse is able to be mid-pack or relatively close, but he's not going to get soft fractions the way he's had in those 1.5 mile, 1.75 mile races on the dirt. But he's a horse that certainly, I'd say he'll probably be about 8, 10 to 1. He's going to be a little bit bigger price over there, but he's a horse that's going to be staying on quite well, and there's no doubt that he's going to stay in the 1.25 mile. Absolutely not. So if you're looking for a horse to include, maybe to do an each way or some of those underneath placings, Next is probably your guy.
There we go. So Next over here is 25 to 1 at the moment, so you can see
the
clear
that's
disparity. Yeah.
Significant value.
Yeah, and I think Next was 1 to 20 over here for his last couple of starts. So obviously the step up in class, but if they do go fast early, hopefully Next will be staying on, for me anyway, because that's the only horse I've backed actually at the Breeders' Cup this year. Moving to the 10.25, which is the Breeders' Cup filly and mare's turf. Cinderella's Dream is the favourite here at 5 to 2, Content 9 to 2, Warlike Goddess 5 to 1, and then we're 9 to 1 bar. Bill, what do we fancy in this race? Do we like the Godolphin Good Thing?
Well, Ylang Lang is a late scratching there, so that kind of took some of the gloss off the race, and Ryan Moore switches to Content. Cinderella's Dream, look, she's no superstar. She's stepping up in trip again. We saw her run in our Guineas, and she ran well there, but she's been a bit of a revelation since going on her travels. She's rock solid. She's the most solid one. I suppose the interesting thing from a betting point of view is what Content we get to see, because this is a horse that's been all at sea on soft ground. She's been very keen. I haven't seen the best of her, but the return to a very fast run race on fast ground might just see Content run really well. But I didn't think there was much between the pair of them. I like the European hand over the home team, and it was a bit of a coin toss. Probably leaning towards Content because she's double the price of Cinderella's Dream, but there wouldn't be much between the two.
So Content in there at 9-2. Scott, coming to you. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go for a price here in number 2, Full Count Felicia. She's primarily based at Woodbine in Toronto, Canada, but she's been right there. Her running style is she needs to go to the lead, and she will. She's drawn 2. There's going to be very little competition on the front end here. I think she goes out front, slows it down, and kicks clear in the last furlong. And again, she should be a really nice price. So that's another good each-way play on the Breeders' Cup Saturday card for me.
There you go. We've not just had the winner from Scott, but he's told you how it's going to unfold as well, which always helps. Kaitlin, are you on the Full Count Felicia bandwagon, or do you fancy a bit of Content or even the Godolphin favourite here?
I like Content and Full Count Felicia. Those are the two that I like. I could see it with Full Count Felicia. I'm a little concerned that maybe she's not going to stay the distance. It's 1 mile and 3/8 this year. That's one of the longer distances of the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, and it's 3 turns. So even with an uncontested lead, I'm not quite sure, but I'd say the best of the bunch, and I'm with Bill with the prices. Content is the one you want, especially getting back fast ground.
So moving on to the 11:05, it is the Breeders' Cup Sprint, which is on the dirt. Federal Judge is the favourite here at 7-2. Mulligan is 9-2. Straight No Chaser 6-1. Nakatomi 7-1. Raging Torrent 7-1, and then we're 8-1 bar. Scott, let's come to you first. Do we like Federal Judge at the front of the market here, or are we looking elsewhere?
I'm on the Mulligan bandwagon. I think the running style is very versatile, can press the lead, be on the lead, or sit just off. I like this horse a lot, especially at the prices 7-2. But he's going to sit a really good trip, and I think he'll be right there in the last furlong, pulling away.
There we go. So Mulligan 9-2 over here, so a point bigger. What do you think here, Kaitlin? Do you like Federal Judge at the front of the market, or are you rowing in with Mulligan?
Either. I think they're both going to be pretty low prices. I'm very against Federal Judge in this race. I think there's a load of other speed. I like Raging Torrent, but I hate the draw for him. So I'm going to look elsewhere once again. I'm going to look to Remake for Japan. I want a horse that's going to be kind of mid-pack or coming from off the pace. So I think that kind of is going to be in between him and Nakatomi. This horse, when he won the Riyadh Dirt Sprint, which was a grade 3, he ended up being Skelly in that race. Didn't run that well in the Dubai Golden Shaheen, but he kind of got bumped a little bit. He was carried wide throughout that race, and then he came back really nicely in the prep race, a win and you're in the Korea Sprint up at Seoul. So I think Remake coming into this race, he's a well-traveled horse. He's good enough to win because this is not quite the best race. I think there's some very underexposed horses in this race. So the old veteran, I'm going to give him a shot for Japan.
So Remaking 8-1. Kaitlin, you've picked a lot of Japanese horses over these 2 podcasts. You
yeah, I'm a fan of everything that they do, but I will say this is not the strongest American group that we have running here in the country right now. And race where it's kind of a double-edged sword is picking between Torpedo and I think Awesome Results the second best horse in the race, but I do think Torpedo Anna is kind of up against it with the other Japanese horse being in here. So I have picked a lot of them, but they're 2 for 2 at Del Mar when they brought horses over to the Breeders' Cup. So they're bringing a big contingent this year, and I think they're bringing some of the ones that they've ever brought.
There we go. So definitely worth noting that the Japanese ones have got a very strong team coming over this year. And then moving on to the 11:45, the Breeders' Cup Mile, notable speech. I mean, this looks a fantastic race on paper. Notable speech at 3-1. Porta Fortuna 7-2. Romantuel is 4-1. Carl Spackler 8-1 has been backed in from 10s. Diego Velasquez 8-1 and 11 bar. Bill, let's come to you first because this is dominated by the European horses. What do you think in this one?
European horses are top 3 in the betting over here. Great record in the race. Notable speech, probably deserves to be favourite. He's got the best piece of form on offer with his Guineas win, but he's been on the go since January. It's just a niggling worry for me. This is race number 8 of the calendar year. It's just whether he can. He looked a bit the shadow of his former self on soft ground at Longchamp last time, I'd be prepared to take him on. I thought it was between the two fillies, to be honest, Ramatuelle and Porta Fortuna. I've always been a fan of Ramatuelle. My issue with this particular filly is she's never won over a mile. Been beaten both times. She's been over a mile. If she's ever going to stay a mile, it's here. But I've always felt 7 furlong soft ground is her bag, as she's shown when she won at Longchamp last time. So I'm going to stick to Porta Fortuna, who was obviously great on her travels, just touched off at the meeting 12 months ago, and it has won her last 3, got better with every run, handles fast ground at Ascot, round a bend. She's just got everything going for her, and I thought Porta Fortuna was the one for me.
Porta Fortuna at centre still. I do agree with Bill that the mile for Ramatuelle, it just brings me back to back there in the Guineas, and I never want to remember that day again, really. And Kaitlin, who for you here? Are you riding with one of the Europeans at the front of the market?
I'd say Porta Fortuna of the Europeans is the most likely, but I'm going to go for an absolutely bomb price here in this race, thinking that it could blow up with some of the speed on the front end. I'm going to go with the number 8 horse that is More Than Looks for the Cherie DeVaux barn. This horse ended up running 6, beaten 2 lengths by Master of the Season Modge last year, and he's done nothing but improve. He had some time away. He's been beaten twice by Carl Spackler. He's gotten out of the gates just a touch slowly, but he really improved last outrun in the turf mile against Carl Spackler again at Kaitlin last time out between them. So if he takes another step forward, which I do think is likely in this race, the pace is going to be honest. Carl Spackler is drawn way wide in this race. I think More Than Looks is the horse that you want at a big price in here.
More Than Looks at 16 to 1. And Scott, for you?
I'm in the other O'Brien trained camp of Porta Fortuna. I think she really looks good. 3-year-olds have a good record in this Breeders' Cup Mile, as do fillies. So she's a fair price. It's a wide open race, but I think she gets the trip. I do think that More Than Looks will be running on probably a really good each-way play at the frame, but I'm in the Porta Fortuna camp.
I can feel it, and exacta coming on here, Scott, with Porta Fortuna and More Than Looks. So those are the two in the 11:45. And then on to the last race. Kaitlin or Scott, could you explain the title of this race for me? Why is it called the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile?
Go ahead.
Okay, so Big Ass Fans has been a sponsor of Breeders' Cup races for several years now. They have traditionally sponsored this dirt mile. Their logo, you wouldn't believe their logo. Their logo is a donkey turning around, staring at you over its shoulder, but the main focus of the donkey is its buttocks, okay? So, you know, donkeys are called asses as well in the Bible, so Big Ass Fans. And they specialize in these very, very huge, large fans that you can put in the stable yard, especially amongst the boxes to cool the horses down in the really hot weather, which we have a lot of in the U.S. in the summer racing. So hence the name. But yeah, Big Ass Fans is the dirt mile sponsor.
Okay, that makes sense, because when we did get the running order come across, that was obviously the one that jumped out at me. I just couldn't understand it, but no, thank you for that.
Oh, you got to see their logo. Their logo is brilliant. Okay, so anyway.
Okay, maybe we'll get the production team to have an overlay of the logo right now.
Free marketing for them.
There you go. In terms of the betting for this race, domestic product is 7 to 2, Saudi Crown 9 to 2, Muth is 11 to 2, Seize the Grey 13 to 2, and then we're 7 to 1 bar. Scott, let's stay with you for the last race of the Breeders' Cup. What's your thoughts here?
Yeah, well, I have to all do confessions up front. This is probably the worst race for me historically in the Breeders' Cup. I have never picked the winner of the dirt mile, whether Big Ass Fan sponsors it or not. But I'm going with Saudi Crown because I have to make a selection. But I think the horse has a good chance. He's drawn well. He's proven at the distance, and he's proven it over the dirt. But it would be a very tepid selection, and especially as the last race on the card, a lot of your players are probably going to have retired already to bed. But anyway, Saudi Crown's what I'm going with, but a very lukewarm selection.
There you go. So if we've landed one of the exactas in the previous race, maybe they'll stay up and have a 5 or a 10 on Saudi Crown.
Okay, right.
Kaitlin, last race, what do you think?
I'm going to go with Mufasa in this race. The Chilean import that is now with Nacho Correas here in the United States, Tyler Gaffleon, going to be aboard. This horse can be forward. He can come from off the pace. One thing I will say is there is a ton of speed in this race in here. So if you're looking for a little bit of a price, I think this horse is very similar to Domestic Product. I think they're going to be the horses that are just off. And the 3 speed's going to be coming in from the 3 inside draws. There's an Argentinian horse in there. There's Tio Saint-Denis, who is a complete runoff for Japan. So is also going to be in there, so he's going to have to sit, but I do think he is drawn well in post position number 1. I do agree with Scott on that, but it's going to be Mufasa here for me.
Mufasa are in there at 8-1. So that rounds off all of the races from the Saturday and all of the Breeders' Cup races that we've covered over these 2 Zoom calls or podcasts, whatever you want to call them. We are going to give out some charity bets, so £100 or $100, however we want to work it. Let's just go down. Let's go down the card, Bill, starting with you. Who do you want to have your £100 or £50 each way charity bet on? And if you've got a charity in mind, then obviously feel free to mention them as well.
Yeah, I'm going to go Sierra Leone in the Classic. 10, 12 to 1, however generous you're feeling. 4 places against the big guns if we can. That's what I'll go.
You're not asking for much, Bill. You want the extra.
No, exactly.
You want the bump on the price.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, the whole match. But no, I just think he's a bit overpriced in a brilliant race.
There we go. So 50 quid each way at 12 to 1 Sierra Leone, 4 places for Bill. Any charity in mind, Bill?
Yeah, Injured Jockey Fund.
The Injured Jockey's Fund, lovely. Kaitlin, coming to you either Friday or Saturday. You can have a 50 quid each way or 100 quid win on a charity bet of your choice.
More than looks.
I'll get the price in just a moment. And Scott, for you?
Yeah, well, now that we have the option of going each way for the charity, I'm really going to go with Full Count Felicia and the Filly and Mare Turf. She's a good price. I will be stunned if she's not at least placed. And £50 each way on Full Count Felicia. That's my selection for the charity bet.
Full Count Felicia for Scott. Cool, good stuff. Right, that rounds off the Breeders' Cup preview. So thank you very much for your time, Bill, Kaitlin, and Scott. Appreciate you dialing in early from where you are. Anyone that's having a bet, do check out the offers. Like I mentioned, the split second offers that we have on multiple Breeders' Cup races. Also the specials markets. And if you're looking to get a decent bet on, then you obviously know to come to us at Star Sports. So very best of luck to the punters out there. And more importantly, best of luck to Bill, Kaitlin, Scott, and ourselves here at Star Sports. So hopefully we get a few results over the next couple of days.